Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guy here. It's the most capped player in the Canadian soccer history here. We do in the Caribbean soccer history here in Toronto, and obviously he's have Caribbean heritage. And I think I'll introduce him now without further ado and ask him to give a little of his background.
Julian De Guzman, born 1981, March 25th, in Toronto. Mom's Jamaican, immigrated when she was 9. My dad, Filipino, immigrated, I believe, when he was 8. Could be wrong, but I know they were very young. And brother and sister. Brother is born in 87, also born in Toronto. Sister born in 83, born in Toronto. Family of 5. And grew up in Scarborough. Started off in Markham, I believe Markham and Eglinton it was, where I was first born, and then moved into buildings right by Birch Mountain, Eglinton. That's where we started as a family of 5. And growing up in Toronto, I know my dad got me involved in soccer because of my mom. She wanted me to do something that took a lot of took up my energy. I was a very energetic boy, troublemaker, caused them a lot of problems. So soccer was the solution, and my dad spent a lot of time. And I started playing soccer at the age of 5.
What club did you with? What club? Were you in a club yet?
Wexford. Yeah, Wexford. Yeah, started in Wexford, and that was the mites. It was mites at the time, squirts, and then from Wexford moved over to Agincourt, and then that's when my dad was really hands-on at that point. Was more involved on the coaching side, and growing up, I mean, watching him play soccer, he played a lot, but he was more so of a goalkeeper, and he played. I believe it was a Caribbean league too, where he was.
Yeah, I mean his name called a lot.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was a goalkeeper until about 2 or 3 days ago. So
yeah. So I watched him playing a lot, and then it was and back to when I started playing is because I remember sitting in his lap watching Canada play in the World Cup in '86. And that was kind of my introduction to soccer, and then playing it, and then learning it, and working with him, and then playing with Agincourt. He was a coach and coached me, and we did a lot of the not just training with the team, but focused on a lot of the things I need, because I was not a good player. I was just a guy that just ran around and took the ball from my own teammates and sometimes score my own goal.
okay, well let me ask you, seeing that I'm now learning that your father is a goalkeeper. Did he play out at any time, or was he strictly a goalkeeper as fast as you could recollect?
He played out, but he was still a goalkeeper, and he was more like a Jorge Campos type goalkeeper, where he was good with his feet, and he would always come out like a Rene Higuita type guy, where come off his line, dribble players, and then kind of do some of the exciting and dangerous, risky things. But for me, he trained me to be more obviously a field player versus a goalkeeper, and a lot of the training that he taught me had a lot to do with the Dutch football. So he studied obviously the game, and then started to teach me it. And the stuff he studied was more so Dutch football.
Okay, that study, what you're doing with the Dutch football now, you have to have a little part with North Scarborough coming up, right? The Dutch football, what was your thinking going into that time? Because now in Malvern, there were marquee players and running parallel with you guys in North Scarborough. Apparently you came from Agincourt. Do you remember that whole evolution of those things? Because your dad name been calling in that.
Yeah, well, funny enough, when he was a coach for Agincourt, I wasn't really even playing. I was more so kind of coming off the bench and getting some minutes here and there. I guess he felt I wasn't ready to really be a starting player at the time. So, but
Oh, parents are tough.
parents are tough. But he did work with me, away from the team. And when St. Andrews and Agincourt merged and became North Scarborough, that's when my game really improved, and a lot of it was based off of the Dutch football. And around that time, that's when I had to make a decision whether, am I going to pursue soccer full time, or am I going to focus on basketball? Because basketball was a big thing in the Filipino culture, and I was playing in the Filipino Basketball League at the same time, and I really loved it. And I thought, this is a great thing. And then the Raptors was announced,
Well,
and I
I'll
thought
have to make a big guess. I guess that's point guard, right?
point guard. But then there's a point too where he said, "Listen, you're not going to grow anymore, so you're not going to be, a 6'1" or 6'2" guy, and plus you're Canadian, and the odds of a Canadian going to the U.S. getting a scholarship and all that stuff, it's 1 to a million." So, but I think he really he understood that. He saw what I had, and he believed in it. I didn't see it at the time, and the big step was me committing to like full time, playing soccer and stepping away from basketball. So that all happened when North Scarborough came around.
Yeah.
And when North Scarborough was formed, he kind of stepped away from being the coach, more so just kind of the team manager. And the coach at the time was Patrick Haddad. So Patrick Haddad was, I think, a very important piece to my development of the game. To actually a few other players I could talk about that has had a chance.
But seeing that we have a lot, you're a travel guy, what I want to pick up now for the public is, when did you feel it? When did your dad think you were ready? Did North Scarborough have successes in competition where now you were being seen, now you were an instrumental part of the team, a valuable part of the team?
But yeah, the interesting part about North Scarborough is because, we were, it was a team, I would say predominantly, West Indian, and we had a West Indian coach who understood us, and he was also a father figure to us. And I think because he was able to model not just a good team, but a successful team. He won Ontario Cups. He actually came from a background before coming to North Scarborough. Patrick Haddad.
Okay, yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was known to like not just win Ontario Cups, but also send a lot of these players off to like good universities. So that was a big thing in getting the scholarships and whatnot. But I think what happened working with Patrick Haddad was not just I was good enough to go to university, but I realized I think I had something good to go to Europe. And me talking about Europe and wanting to go to Europe kind of made my parents think, okay, maybe you're talking something else that is foreign to us. We just want you to go to university and get your scholarship, and then you're set for life, right?
How did that work?
Well, the problem was that I ended up going to the World Cup match in '94, and it was in Michigan. Went to watch Brazil against Sweden, and I got to watch my idol, which was Romario, and ever since then I said, okay, I am going to Europe. Like there's nothing stopping me at this point. But also, what inspired me to go to Europe was I had my brother who looked up to me. We heard many stories, Malvern, Magic. We watched a lot of these guys, and those were the guys that were getting called up to the national team, and they would go to Europe as well, and you would hear these wonderful stories about guys from Scarborough going to Europe, getting a chance with Newcastle, Ajax, all this stuff, and playing for the national team. And that was kind of my example to follow. And they were obviously 78s, 79 type players, but the one player that stood out the most was Brad Parker, who was an 80, and he always played a few years up. Desi Humphreys was also one of those guys, But Brad Parker was a guy who played for the national team and then went to Feyenoord. And then that's when we were really focused on, okay, Dutch football. Like he's the reason why we got to watch Dutch football. AJ Lee, who went to Ajax as well, he was the reason why we got to watch Dutch football. So we focused a lot on the Dutch football at that point, and that's where I said, okay, I need to go to Europe because I know I could make it, and I think I have a very good chance of making it. And Patrick Adada really developed a team around me, making me the captain as well. But most importantly, I think seeing what my brother was good at and what he was able to do, I had to set the example for him to follow, knowing that he could be even better than me.
Okay, where was Jonathan in the progression now? Seeing that he's younger, you thinking go in Europe, where was Jonathan in the pecking? Was he, because I know he went over young, so where was he? He was still here, right?
Oh yeah, he was still here. I mean, my time through Agent Court in North Scarborough, he would either be on the sideline watching our games, even with North Scarborough, he would train with us at times, and he was only like 7, 8, and I always had him around, my group of my friends, and so he had to mature very fast. So he was always around the older boys, and that's how
that was good for him.
Huge. It was huge for him, and the reason why I wanted him to hang around me and my friends was because watching these kids in Holland and Europe, they're starting this at the age of 6, and I realized how far behind we were in Canada. So I had to push his progression at a faster rate versus mine, where I felt I was already falling behind. And I was already at the age of 13 thinking about this, 14 thinking about where, okay, I'm losing time, but I got to make sure he doesn't lose time.
So when did that click? When did you jump on the plane? What happened? How that worked? Because for the younger people, a lot of players now are aspiring. Yeah. So I want to make sure they listen to you and realize there's a click, something happens, something turns on beside the opportunity.
The click came, I would say the time, it's crazy, the time when we were watching the Euro 96, and I was 15. We were watching Euro 96, I was 15, and he was 9. He was 9 years old. And I remember him crying because Holland had lost the Euro. And he had told me his dream was to play for Holland.
Wait. Where you got that from? Just like that?
He loved Dutch football because we were always.
Yeah, I know he was into right.
Right. So we were always following Dutch football, and Holland got knocked out of the Euro Championship, and he was crying, and seeing him cry showed how much it meant to him. And he told me, I want to play for Holland at the age of 9. So that clicked for me because I said, okay, if you're that serious, I'm going to treat this from this point onwards. We're going to treat this like it's professional. We're training 3-4 times a day. There's no more friends. There's no more fun. I'm pretty much taking away your childhood. And I also have to be the example to lead that. So I would have said around 96, the Euro 96, where it really clicked, and we went to work. I mean, mind you, before that we were already going to work, but this was the point where I said, okay, I have to get to Europe, and I'm going to get to Europe.
So who went first? You?
I did, yeah. I went in 90. I actually went in 96. I went on a tryout to Holland, but I went with a buddy of mine, Cesar Pena, and he was playing on North Scarborough's team, and he was a year younger than me, but Feyenoord were very interested in him.
So I just want the listeners to understand, Julian, this guy played in the Bundesliga, played in La Liga, and we're gonna be asking him. We'll follow his plane ticket wherever he goes, but he has a lot of questions to answer because there's a lot of differences there, and he seemed very calm, cool, and calculated. So if you're young and this is a gentleman you need to listen to figure out certain things. So okay, you get there, and How was the whole setup? You know, we have horror stories, we have things work out. How did it work for you?
Well, we pretty much got invited. Well, we got invited to meet a trainer, a personal trainer in Holland, because it was through an agent, and this was Caesar, myself, and my dad, and all the birthday money you could imagine that I've collected through the years was the plane ticket that got us over there. And we were in Holland for about a couple weeks, and we were training with this guy, played a couple games. I obviously wasn't good enough, but Caesar was good enough to say, okay, let's get him to Feyenoord, and he gets to go do the tryout. But myself, I had to stay behind, and I was offered maybe a second division team, but my dad said no. And the reason why I was able to get to Holland and my dad allowed this to happen was because they pretty much said, if you really want to get to Europe and try out, you got to show that you're responsible enough to prove to us parents that you could handle yourself by getting good grades in school. So in grade 9, this was when it all happened, and I was able to get honor rolls. So then that's why I was able to get on this trip. But even though I didn't make it, I ended up coming home, and I had to do another year of school, grade 10, but I still wanted to get back to Europe. And it was the same incentive: get honor rolls, and then we'll talk about it. And I got honor rolls again in grade 10 because I felt I was good enough. I got the exposure to Europe. I've heard the horror stories of many people or players going overseas and coming home. And the reason why they came home wasn't because they weren't good enough. They were actually very good. They were better players than me, talented, but they were homesick. That was always the reason why a lot of these guys came home. So mentally, they weren't prepared. But I knew mentally, I've been preparing myself and my brother to go to Europe. Like, he literally had a Dutch dictionary at the age of 9. He was already learning Dutch. His whole bedroom filled with Dutch jerseys. He knew the Dutch national anthem, and he really wanted it. So I couldn't let this guy down. So the second chance now in '97 was a trial in France, and thankfully I took French in grade 9 and grade 10. And then I went to France, and the trial was set up to go to Marseille for the first 2 weeks, and then go to Paris for the second 2 weeks. So it was a month trial, and went to Marseille. And again, this time birthday money's been spent.
You doing that through agents or just writing into the club or
agents? Yeah, agents. So this particular trial was arranged by the same gentleman, Charlie Blanco, who arranged the one for Holland for Cesar Pena and myself. He's done the same thing now from myself to go to France, and he was working with a gentleman, Francois Glassman, who used to run the hangar.
Yeah, I know Francois. Yeah.
Yeah. So that trial was already arranged for me to go to Marseille, and I went there. But funny enough, nobody really knew who I was. And I even showed up to the training. I showed up to the facility. They got me in because Francois Glassman knew the supervisor of the center where the players were staying at.
Yeah.
But the coaches didn't really know who I was, because when I got to the training ground to train, they said, "Who's this guy?" So I had to prove myself in the first training with the under-17 team. I did very well. It's probably I can still remember this first training session. I absolutely killed it, scored goals, did everything you could imagine. But then I went to the under-17 B team for the rest of the week, and I guess it was a test to see how good is this guy, really is.
Yeah.
And then I did very well. B team coach goes, "Okay, I'm going to send you back up to the first team because you're way too good for our group." Went back up to the under-17 first team, or A team, and then had another week. Did very well, and then they said, "Okay, we're going to see how good you are. We're going to have a friendly match against the reserve team of Olympique de Marseille." And then in that match, I remember we lost 3-2, but I scored the 2 goals in that game. And that's when they offered me an academy contract. '97, September 15th, 2 days after my brother's birthday. So I remember this clearly. and I was the happiest person in the world because I was like, this is all I wanted, was just to be anywhere in Europe. I didn't care where it was, and it just happened to be in Olympique de Marseille in '97, September 15th.
So because we have Canada to cover, we have La Coruna, and we have the Bundesliga to cover. How you're looking at what age there when you got that in the Marseille in the French side?
I was 16. I was 16, and I at that point I knew I was too young. I was too old. I felt my time had passed,
Mm-hmm.
and I was very lucky to get right in there, because that would have been, if it was another year later, then it would have been too late.
And you say that that type of system based on the age requirement is even more critical now?
Oh yeah. And Marseille, believe me, I mean, if you know Marseille as a city, it was them times. I mean, I'm sure now it's better, but those times was considered one of the roughest and most dangerous cities in Europe. So to grow, to live there as a young kid, teenager, I mean, you're dealing with guys who live there, are from there. If not, they're from, Senegal, they're from Ivory Coast, they're from Cameroon, and you got to compete with them as a Canadian to earn a spot.
Yeah, that's tough.
So that's at the age of 17. And mind you, I was already cut from the under-17 national team. I was cut from the provincial team, and now I got.
How long you stayed there? Because Deportivo I want to hear about, because in the Caribbean and all over, everybody hear about this La Liga. So how you cracked that in La Liga and you stayed there? Because that's, looking at your stats, still think you played the most game in your career, 98 or something like that in La Liga. So
110.
110. Oh, that's adding the other 20
Cup games and international.
Yeah, because I saw it have another 20. I didn't know what that was about, right? But you could explain that. So how you crack that La Liga thing?
Well, La Liga started obviously from my time in Bundesliga, and how that worked was the sporting director of the team at Hanover, Ricardo Mora. He's the guy that was there from 2000.
So hold on, let me get this clear, Julian. You do that little stunt with Marseille. From there, you went the Bundesliga?
So from there, when the academy director said, okay, we're not taking you anymore, Canadians are not good enough in Europe, it's better you go back home. This all happened in 2000. I was 19, and I was pretty much done because they weren't going to sign me. And then right at a couple weeks after that, I got called into a national team camp in Duisburg. This is when Holger Oziak was the coach. I did this camp in Duisburg for about a week. I did very well, and thankfully there were some scouts there, and one of the scouts was from Saarbrücken. And the scout came up to me at the end of the tournament and says, I like you. I want you to come visit our city, and I want you to sign with our team. So I ended up going to FC Saarbrücken, which was in the Bundesliga 2, second division, Bundesliga.
Yeah.
But it was with their reserve team. So he had brought me over, and I believe me, I signed right away without even looking at what I was signing. I didn't care what it was. Like, my mom was worried because I'm going to Germany, and black man going to Germany. Like, what do you?
Yeah. That's how I felt the first World Cup I went to there, but it was okay. So I even went the second time. So yeah, I was thinking that same way too. Nothing wrong with your mom.
Yeah, no, my mom was worried, but listen, I can't let my brother down. So I went there, played with the reserve team. At the end of my first season in 2000, I ended up making the bench for the first team, and that was 2001. So I was 20, and then the following year, that summer, I went to the World Cup in Argentina, and then I signed a pro contract, and then I'm with the first team now. Now I'm in the Bundesliga for the season 2001-2002, and this was my first professional season, first professional contract, second division Bundesliga, FC Saarbrücken. I was played under 3 coaches. First coach, I got fired after like 4 or 5 games. I played under him, but then the new coach that comes in, I didn't play for like 6 months.
Oy.
Yeah.
What was the reason for that, you think?
New coach comes in, he's under pressure. He needs to keep the team in the league, so he's going with experienced players. And during those times, yeah, the average age of that team was probably 29, 30 years old. So
All right, so you got seasoned players who you figured.
he trusts, and exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm now telling myself, okay, I need minutes, I need games. So I went back to the second team to play more games. But that coach that came in ends up getting fired, and then the third coach that was hired that same season was an American guy, um, uh, Thomas Dooley, and he played for the U.S. national team. And he said, "Okay, I'm going to bring in guys that just want to play." So he brought me in towards the end of the season. I finished the season, the last 10 games of the season. I do very well. Team gets relegated, and when your team gets
Whoa.
relegated, your contract now becomes void. So you're a free agent. And in that same season, when our team got relegated, the teams that got promoted, one of the teams was Hanover. And the scout of that team was the assistant coach at the beginning of the same season of Saarbrücken. And he liked me.
Okay.
So he told the coach for Hanover 96, you should bring this boy up, young 21-year-old Canadian. He's a guy that you should look at. Because the coach of Hanover 96 was Ralph Rangnick, who loves young players, just loves young players. And he's the guy that runs Red Bull Leipzig, Red Bull Salzburg, Red Bull New York, and doesn't want players over the age of 26. He only wants young players. He's all about young players.
That's a progressive guy.
So that's what he was aiming for. He signs me, because I'm a free agent, signs me to a Bundesliga contract, and now I'm in the Bundesliga in 2002 at the age of 21. I left home in 97 at age 16. Now I'm in the Bundesliga at 21.
How was that experience? How was the competition? How
Oh man, it was almost happening too fast. But at the same time, when I moved to Germany, the guys I looked up to was Paul Stalteri, Kevin McKenna, Owen Hargraves, Tam Saliwa, who was also Canadian, playing for a second division team, Bundesliga in Nuremberg. These were the guys I looked up to and said, okay, you know what? If they could do it, so can I, type thing. That was my mentality. And there I was in 2002 playing for Hanover 96. And I made my debut, fourth game of the season, coming off the bench against Nuremberg. And the following game we played at home, I didn't expect to start. We're going for a team walk 3 hours before kickoff. Ralph Rangnick comes to me against Borussia Dortmund and says, Julian, how do you feel? It's like, I feel good. I was like, well, you're starting. So I'm against Jan Koller and Thomas Rosicky that game, and Rosicky, yeah, that was the time in Bundesliga from 2002 to 2005, and the sporting director was Ricardo Mora, and he was the guy that obviously kept an eye on me. Mm-hmm. And in 2005, when my contract expired, his contract expired, and he was meant to keep me around because he kept giving me new contracts, new offers for Hanover. And I liked the city. I loved it there and I wanted to stay, but I was also getting offers from Hamburg, Bremen, Leverkusen. And then there was teams like Tottenham offered me a contract.
So obviously, let's evaluate your game now. If you're getting these offers for a guy who, is struggling in Marseille and stuff, you get that opportunity. As the young guys listening, you got that opportunity. You think you made the best use of your opportunity the way you could. You make your debut, and now you get these offers from different people. Who's your agent, and how you determining now where you want to go? Because those offers, you mentioned Tottenham, that's a different league now. So yes. What's your scope now? You have to depend on your agent more or less, or how you're thinking? What's your thinking? Because a player has to also dictate to the agent what he wants up to a certain extent.
The agent was more keen on me staying in the Bundesliga, and Leverkusen was the team that the agent and I guess his partners were happy about. Obviously, it was the most attractive offer. It was a big club, a huge club, still is a huge club. But then when I started to hear about
nice facility.
Great facilities. Oh yeah.
Nice facility.
But when I started to hear about offers outside of the Bundesliga, like Tottenham, Marseille, then I started to ask my agent, what about these offers? And they said, yeah, don't worry about that. Let's focus on the Bundesliga. So when I got the offer from Hanover, the sporting director came to me and said, listen, and mind you, this is 7 months before my contract even expired, because once you hit 6 months, you're actually in your last 6 months of your contract, you're free to sign with anybody. And we're negotiating, and the sporting director of Hanover
Hold
said,
on. Free to sign or free to negotiate?
you could sign a pre-contract, which is what I did.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. You can negotiate. You can negotiate your first day after you sign if you want. You can negotiate, but you can't sign anywhere until 6 months.
So there's no tampering clauses or anything like that? Okay.
It's a fun business. Trust me, if you know what you're doing.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But they the sporting director told me he's going back to where he came from, which was Deportivo la Coruna. He had played for that club. He was a sporting director for the club. And he told me, Julian, I'm going to offer you this contract for Hanover here. But on the other side, I'm telling you, I'm going back to where I came from. And I want to bring you with me.
What year that was now?
No, this was the end of 2004. I would say like December 2004. No, I lied. This was probably like October 2004. And I had signed a pre-contract in January 2005.
Okay. So seeing that they wanted you to stay in the Bundesliga, Tottenham gave you an offer. He was from, we had him hiding there on me because I'm waiting for this La Liga thing, but now I realize the guy is right around you and he's going to La Liga, right? Now, did you have any tentacles or any ambition with the La Liga, or this was the pivotal guy that goes there? You had a relationship, confidence in this guy that took you to La Liga?
Well, the agent I got, so I used to work with a German agent that was happy about Bayern Leverkusen.
Mm-hmm.
I left him and went to my brother's agent, who was Dutch. And he was the one that told me about Martin Jol, Dutch coach, who was coaching for Tottenham, wanted me. That's where that offer came from. So it was another agent.
But you don't mention your brother's agent now, but we didn't follow up on your brother. So where is Jonathan now on the spectrum now, if you're saying your brother agent? So Jonathan seemed to be doing well within himself now, within that time. You're explaining that, right?
Oh yeah, he was.
So when within your travels in there that Jonathan picked up, where within those moves you tell me there, because you know, say you went to your brother's
So
agent.
when I signed in for Saarbrücken Second Division Bundesliga.
Yeah.
So in 2000, sorry, for the second team. So in 2000, when I signed, my brother was on his way to Holland to go on a trial, and he was 12 years old. So actually, I'm going to bring you even back further. When I was in Marseille,
Mm-hmm.
he came to train at the age of 10. So he came, and this must have been 98. Yeah, this was 98.
And that's a normal, because you found out that you were past the age at 19. So him at 10, was that ideal now?
Of course, he needs that exposure. We didn't have that we didn't have those resources in Canada. He needed to be exposed to European soccer. So
Okay.
he was already going to Europe. He went to Uruguay at 10 to play in a tournament. Then he came to train with Marseille's under 13 team at the age of 10. They wanted to keep him. I told him don't stay because it's not a good youth system. And then at the age of 12, he goes to Holland to try to train with them. They like him, and they end up telling him to, okay, let's train another couple of weeks, because they had him train with the older team. What they do is they take you as a young player, throw you in with the older boys, which is what he's been doing his whole career or his whole time in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And he was already prepared for that. Does well. They go, okay, there's something special about this kid, and then he ends up staying there at the age of 12. So this all happened when I was leaving France to go to Saarbrücken, and then he ended up staying with Feyenoord from then. So then I would say around, yeah, he was actually introduced to those agents from Charlie, and they were
Mhm.
working side by side, the Dutch agents and Charlie, and those were the same agents I ended up talking to about I guess opportunities or offers that were coming my way outside of Germany.
So let's
In
bridge it now. So now the guy is still saying he's going back to La Liga. You mentioned your brother agent now. So now we know Jonathan is up to speed because he's been coming with you from since then.
Yeah.
So how does that work for you over there and he's in Feyenoord?
Oh,
Because well, you signed with Deportivo in La Liga, not so?
yeah. So I signed a pre-contract. I signed a pre-contract after in 2005 January. Nobody knew about it. It was just only between the agent, sporting director of Hanover, who still had another 6 months, and myself. Nobody knew.
That's what I thought. It has to be that way.
Yeah. And so because I still had 6 more months to play
Yeah.
with Hanover, and we were fighting for relegation, but I guess the news got out, and Hanover fans were pissed. They weren't happy, but I just knew because I mean you have Holland. I mean you have an offer from Tottenham, you have an offer from Marseille, and you have an offer from La Coruna. I have never heard of a story about a Canadian, even Americans. Like I know there's Claudio Reyna who played in Santander, I think, but there wasn't really much of a story of North Americans, like other than Mexicans playing in La Liga. And La Liga was my favorite league because Romario, my idol, who I
Yeah.
went to watch in '94, play for Brazil,
Yeah.
was for Barcelona, and I was a big Barcelona fan. And I've always been cut by English coaches in our provincial programs, and I was cut by English coaches from our national team programs. So I was never a fan of English football growing
Well,
up.
even watching your game over your career, yeah, I can see a fit in there. But I want to come when my friends start noticing you in the Gold Cup. You know, so you go to how was the brand now? This is where it comes in. You land in La Liga now. You just come out the Bundesliga. You're in La Liga now, right? Um, Culture shock. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
saying but knowing your style, Julian, it's really kind of your style. You're tuning, you're pivoting, your possession game, right? Was that different than the Bundesliga?
very different. Yeah, very different. I mean, it was no more just physical. Like I was a very strong runner. Um, I was deep in the midfield fighting for battles. I was very athletic. In La Liga, I mean, that kind of goes out the door. I mean, you have to be a pure footballer mentally. The ball moves faster than you think. That's how it works there. And I think me playing there, one was probably the best moments of my, if not, it was the best moments of my career. I enjoyed the football at the most. No one's ever teaching you La Liga football in Canada, growing up in Canada. And I mean, you have to be more than just a footballer to play in a level like this, because these guys are scientists. I don't know how else to tell you. They're like scientists on the
Yeah,
pitch.
well, to me, it looked like a lot of brain work, a lot of patience, and even when you have the ability, because the possession game is totally different. And once you get
It's
into
very
the
different.
possession game, you have to know, anticipate, and be patient.
It's art. It's all art. The way that ball moves is like a paintbrush, just going across a canvas, and after 90 minutes, you get this wonderful piece of art in front of you, and you could just enjoy it because you just finished playing against the best players in the world, and it's in the nicest stadiums, fans, the weather, the food, everything that comes with it, and then you're at the end of the game, you're changing jerseys with Ronaldinho, Raquelme,
That's what I'm
Eto.
going to ask you now. Did you get any opportunity to play? We do them with team scores, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and against Ronaldo or Messi.
Yeah,
And what was it like?
playing. I played against Messi when he was still wearing number 19. Um, Again, he was still. I mean, he was incredible. I mean, obviously he's something else now, but he was. You could see he was becoming something because at the time it was all about Ronaldinho, um, and the stuff he did. I don't think anyone will ever repeat. The stuff that Messi has done, nobody will ever repeat. But
Stuff well, that's we don't want to go on record like that because
yeah,
we
that's the
see
thing.
greater and greater ones coming. I wouldn't
It's
venture there. I mean, he's phenomenal, but I wouldn't go there.
I would I would I mean I've never been so happy sitting on a bench and watching these. Like, you don't you hate sitting on a bench. You want to play, but sitting on a bench and watching, you know, a phenomenal just blow by three players and cut a guy and score. Like it has you who's the opposition on your feet and just holding your head. Like, what did you just see? Ronaldinho just doing stuff magic in the middle of the pitch, and whether it's putting a ball through legs or
So
flicking it over.
so it wasn't Messi you're talking about, it was Ronaldinho.
Ronaldinho was the man, or Ronaldo from Real Madrid.
Oh, okay. Okay. So which one you were amazed you were holding your head for? Ronaldinho?
Ronaldinho hands down. Ronaldinho hands down. Ronaldinho was.
Yeah. He was. I just think his work ethics keep let him down. I don't.
Yeah, he didn't have the drive, and I think he
Yeah.
just had too much success at such a fast pace. And I mean, Brazilian. But then you have guys like Zidane. I had to deal with Zidane, and he was something else. Riquelme, that's another special player that I mean, for me, Pozuelo for me is kind of a Riquelme of the MLS. That's the most you will ever come close to in terms of witnessing something like that. But
So
Riquelme,
players like Zidane, depossessing them is better you zone them off. Depossessing them
Zidane.
is not part of the vocab. Taking the ball from them a bit,
But that was my job as a defensive midfielder. I had to come across these type of players on a regular and figure out how do I deal with these guys. And they were the most fascinating players to come across in any match, and that was my job to defend them. And but at the end of the game, it was always great to even just being able to have a jersey from Eto or Deco or Thierry Henry or Riquelme, and to have these guys and swap jerseys and look back at that. It's always great because if I talk to you about it today and I don't have a jersey from them, I wouldn't believe it.
Okay, all right. No, but I know their ability. I'm pretty good at that. So now you signed with Toronto FC.
Mhm.
What stage of your career that was? How did that unfold?
Well, that was it was special because in 2007 we have a professional team in our city, and I was very, very excited about that. And I was following TFC the moment they started, and I just finished probably the most successful time in my career, where I was Gold Cup MVP. I was
Oh well, hold on. All right. No. I don't want you skipping over because behind me there's you're taking the Gold Cup trophy
yeah,
from
yeah.
Massini there. But before you go Toronto FC, yes, the Gold Cup was in 2007. Toronto FC is 2007. So the Gold Cup would be almost simultaneous with the Toronto FC launching, but you weren't there yet. You came in 2009, correct?
Yeah, I came.
Right. Okay, so
I came in
let's do
2009.
the
Yeah.
Gold Cup now. And Julian, you had a hell of a tournament. I mean, that's when you reach the semifinal, the big controversy with
Yeah.
USA and stuff. And you recall that and how you felt in that tournament because you lift the MVP, and not many people. And here we have another guy, you lifting the MVP of the Gold Cup.
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, when I found out I was the MVP of that Gold Cup, I remember I was it was after the tournament. I remember coming to Toronto, and I was actually on a boat party, and somebody had told me, you just got announced player of the tournament for Gold Cup, and I said, yeah, right, that's a lie. There's no way, you're lying. And It was the next morning I found out it was actually true. And I was like, man, this is incredible. Like, how is that possible that I was the best player in this continental tournament as a Canadian? And it was the same season or same year where I became player of the year for a La Liga team as well. So I was that was probably the peak of my career where these things all happen. And but at the same time, when I look back at that team that we had
Yeah,
in
the team
07,
did well.
it was a very strong team. It was a team that could have won that tournament, and that was a team that was meant to take us to a World Cup. And the reason why I say we were meant to go to a World Cup was because I think the pieces we had in terms of your strong, not just 11, but maybe strong 13 players, we were unstoppable. We were unstoppable. It would take a bad call to stop us.
Yeah.
But,
and in your mind, it probably did. So
yeah, and which actually did. But even after that tournament, I felt we were picking up that momentum going to a World Cup. But the problem was we had an interim coach. We didn't have a full-time coach, and it was by chance Stephen Hart was our coach during that Gold Cup.
Oh yeah, that's what happened. Yes, I recall.
And then, but they have already appointed a head coach after the Gold Cup. So it was Dale Mitchell. And I remember us players, we were pissed because we felt we had something going. We had chemistry. We finally have something together that didn't exist since '86. And it wasn't just getting knocked out of the Gold Cup. It was actually losing Stephen Hart. And we knew we had a World Cup qualifier ahead of us. And that's where it was very hard for us as a group to accept. I mean, nothing against Del Mitchell. We think he's great and everything, but we just had momentum after this tournament. And that momentum kind of came to a halt the moment Del Mitchell came in. Stephen Hart was still involved as an assistant coach, but it wasn't the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
He created that. Stephen Hart
created it. Played hard, man.
He created that.
Hard, and that's the best I've seen Canada perform in a while.
And I'm telling you, the football we were playing, we were unstoppable. Like the goals we were scoring, like even though this generation that we're seeing today is the best generation that has ever existed, I still can't see a game that would come close to the games we've had against the Guatemalas or.
Yeah, I have a lot of youth celebrations with Guatemala, and I have a lot of
Costa Rica's, like the games we played, like we were enjoying the game. We felt free.
That was a really good tournament by you.
Oh yeah.
Now you're going to Toronto FC now, and you're the DP, and the club need a lot of pieces, and because the DP is something new and the public knows there's a lot of money involved. They expect you to be the Messiah, and your game was a different game, and I don't think Toronto and even Canada was ready because now you're dealing still with the La Liga style.
Right. Okay. Right. So, funny story. It's crazy now that we're speaking about this, and it takes me back to that time because, like I remember looking at the contract from TFC, and it all happened after 2009 Gold Cup. TFC had approached me. They wanted me. I was a free agent. My contract was done with Deportivo. I still wanted to stay in Europe. I had offers from PSV. I had offers from Benfica. I had offers from Espanyol, teams throughout Europe. The one thing that was happening in Europe that was the recession, and the offers that were coming in weren't the same offers that they were initially talking about a year before that. So now we're talking about 30-50% less than what they were offering because of the recession, how much that impacted Europe. But TFC now come to the table and they're showing a much different figure, and it's my hometown. The problem was, well, not the problem, but the interesting part was the contract represented more so a striker's contract. There was bonuses.
Incentives, yeah, a lot of incentives and bonuses.
Assists. There was all these different. I've never seen these incentives before. You don't get these as a defensive midfielder in Europe.
So they kind of being cautious, I think, with the money.
Well, for sure. I mean, you're getting later in your career, and I think that's where you got to make a smart decision. And that's one of the things that a lot of the agents talk to me about growing in Europe. It's your goal is to make as much money as you can in your career because it's a short-lived career, right? And I think that's the honest truth playing the game. So some of the decisions I have to make is not just emotionally, but I have to really plan out what's going to happen after my career. But again, seeing the offer that TFC was offered, I mean, it was great, but it's coming from Toronto. It's my hometown. So I can't be the person to say, hey guys, do not offer me this contract because I am not a striker, even though it was a striker's contract.
Yeah.
I think that's where I got stuck, but I decided to take the risk. I mean, it was worth the risk, and I knew that for me, at the end of the day, this was still a new beginning for soccer in Canada, and this is we don't have a professional team. When we don't have a professional team in the MLS, this is huge. We're finally having a professional team in the MLS. Now we're getting D-Row was in town. We had Adrian Saru, we had Chris Pozniak, we had Jim Brennan. So we had a lot of these Canadian players I've played with playing for this team. So it really made me feel comfortable to make the decision to come home and play with the guys that I knew.
But you didn't really change your style if you had incentive, and I can tell you right now, there's a time for everything. So you were very professional about keeping it close to your vest. But you never really changed your style, and power to you, because your character will end right there.
Oh yeah. I think the misconception was because I had non-soccer people making soccer decisions. I think that's where they were struggling to understand how soccer works. And I think that's where a lot of people in North America who don't know what soccer is, you cannot compare it to the hockey, you cannot compare it to the basketball, you cannot compare it to the football. It's a different sport entirely. You need soccer people to run it. And I think that's where they saw me as, okay, this is the so-called, best player at the time to sign. Let's sign him to this contract. But they didn't do their homework. They only saw me playing for the Canadian national team under Stephen Hart with, a very unique system that would last maybe 3 times in the year. And they see me score goals and they see me make assists. And then, this guy could score goals. He could make assists. Let's sign him to. But my full-time job was actually a defensive midfielder in the Liga, in one of the top leagues in the world. So that's where I felt they didn't make their they didn't do their research, and it was a learning curve for the franchise. It was a learning curve for a lot of fans, media, to understand what position or what does this guy represent as a player, because he's not scoring the goals, he's not making the assists.
Exactly.
Why?
Bradley does it. We can fast forward.
There you go. And I think that's where they did the research. Okay, now we know we need to spend money on a defensive midfielder for his role. That's it. But let's help him out and bring in a striker that we could spend the same money on. They did
that. So they probably learned.
But they could have done that with me. They could have done that with D-Row. Spend the same money on D-Row, give him a DP contract, give him it could have been the exact same thing. Give a DP contract for center back. And then there you have your spine of leaders to really raise the bar high. They figured it out later, and that's why now the TFC have trophies, and now it's a team that goes for trophies, because I think now you got soccer people making those soccer decisions behind the scenes.
So what you think now of the new generation? You kind of reference it. What do you think about the new generation of with Davies and the Davids, and I mean, and you can say it, but we can say it. Always want the best to play.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see. I used to check it with France and everybody in the World Cup by looking at the bench and looking at the representative on the field. And I have never seen representation that Canada is putting out where I have a team picture with 7 black guys on the field. And I would hope that they're the best, because I'm not on it because they're black guys, but it shouldn't work in the reverse based on just visibility. If you just pick the best, I believe in you picking the best, and it shouldn't have to do with who's the supporters.
You sound like my coach, my former coach, national team coach, Benito Floro. And there's a time There's a time he had to pick. Well, he obviously picks his team, but he was criticized for picking too many black guys for the national team. And I'm not gonna say by who or whatever, but I remember him telling me this.
Yeah, well, I've been on this a long time in the
And
World Cups with France and everybody else. I
we've
saw
seen
it.
it. We've
Yeah,
seen
I've
it
seen it.
for
Yeah,
many
I've
years.
seen it. Yeah.
But it really opened my eyes because I was like, as a captain at the time, he told me, he goes, Julian, I can't believe here I'm being criticized for picking too many black guys, and it was a joke in the boardrooms with him there, and that's what disturbed me the most. And he says, all I'm doing is picking the best players. It had nothing to do with color.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with education.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with
Because even me and this, we, you know what, we can jump forward now with the, you were, the last time I interviewed you, you were the is the GM or the manager of the Fury.
Ottawa Fury. Yeah.
Did you think you accomplished what you were trying to do in Ottawa?
Oh, making the team Canadian. Very simple. I've experienced it with TFC. I've seen it with a lot of the Canadian professional teams where you look around and you can't even name a player because they're not Canadian. Like, who are these guys that you're coming up to watch? So that was my issue from my past experience and playing for Ottawa under Mark DeSantos, who was actually big on promoting Canadians and seeing what he was doing for not just the club but also the country. I thought that was great, and playing under him, then retiring, becoming an assistant coach and a head coach. And I worked with Paul Dalglish at the time. And Paul Dalglish, I mean, to be fair, he did what he could do to bring in the best players he trusted and he wanted, but a lot of them weren't Canadians. I mean, there was probably maybe 2 guys that were Canadian starting under him, right? So that's where, when I was appointed, the GM coach, I said, I'm making this a Canadian team. Finish. Like, this is a Canadian club. We're in the nation's capital, and I'm sure people would appreciate coming to a game more to see Canadian, but also home. Like, I think that's how it should be, because that's how it was for me when I went to Europe. I go to France. There's a lot of French players playing for the Marseille team. There's a lot of German players playing for the German team. Same thing. That should be the same thing in Canada, and I think we have enough good players to be competing at the professional levels in this continent to form. And this is what we're beginning to see today with Montreal Impact, or sorry, CF Montreal, TFC, Vancouver Whitecaps. We're seeing more Canadians, the most Canadians ever. Before, yes, you watched all 3 MLS teams, you couldn't even count 5 Canadians starting between the 3 MLS teams, and that was a struggle for us to watch, and it was hard to understand. But now things are changing. These guys are getting chances, and that was my philosophy for Ottawa, a professional. And at the time, we were the only 5 professional teams in the country, and being one of them, we used to have 9 guys starting for a match against an American team in the USL, and that was just a standard thing. And that was the message to the coach: we are here to play Canadians. We are here to grow Canadians and give these guys a chance. And that was my philosophy, and that was what I wanted to implement with Ottawa Fury.
So, what do you think of the CPL, the new league? You've been around with. I see Stephen Hart is with Halifax or whatever. Are you still involved within that realm, or
no?
What you?
I'm not nothing. I have nothing to do with the CPL. But I mean, for me, it's just great to finally see something that's domestic and that feels Canadian. And we're obviously years behind. And if this was to happen 10, 15 years ago, you can only imagine we would have played 2 World Cups by now, right? But we still got a ways to go, and it's finally happening where we have our own domestic league, and a lot of these guys who used to fall through the cracks are now getting a chance, and we're not repeating, losing generation over generation like we used to, and kind of just brush it off because nobody cared, and now people are beginning to care, and it's good to see that we're finally seeing young 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and the only thing for me, it's unfortunate with today's times, obviously with COVID and there's no league in season. But if this was to happen 10 years ago, if someone was there to believe that we do have good Canadians that could play at a professional level and create this, then, I think we would be in a much different position now. But it's great that it's finally happening, and we're seeing teams from the CPL competing in the Champions League, which is great. But this is where we got to keep taking those big steps forward and still grow this, and hopefully down the road, it's not going to be just 8 teams. It's going to be now 12 teams. It'll be 16 teams, and I think you'll start to see a complete soccer program from nationwide versus just focusing on academies or focusing on players like what I had to go through. There's no more stories. There shouldn't be any more stories like that.
Well, exactly. That's why I wanted you to tell yours. You know what I mean?
There shouldn't be. You should never hear a story ever again like that.
Yours. Well, the thing is, people might accept yours because it had a happy ending. Travels within the community, the Caribbean community, the West Indian community. You remember have any memories of going any tournaments, any leagues, any?
Yeah, when I was 15, I used to play with the Guyanese at North Scarborough. It was the Guyanese Canadians. So I used to.
You?
Yeah. I used to play with the men's Guyanese Canadians, with Egan Wire, and I remember even playing against Dero, because Dero was actually just taken off.
Yeah.
And that was that was probably a memorable experience, or huge experience for me to play against him, but also play with the Guyanese Canadians, which were men at the time. So at the time at 15, I remember taking that big step and just not just trying to keep up with them, but also being one of the better players. And it was I see the guys every now and then, you run into them, and it's like, wow, it's crazy throwbacks just to see how it all started. And it's thanks to these guys, thanks to these leagues, those times that allowed me to develop and become a mature and prepare myself to go to Europe. So if it wasn't for these leagues and these environments, I mean, I wouldn't have the chance, right? And
because you mentioned Dero, playing against Dero. I know he was in Marvel and you in North Scarborough. I have an action shot. Of course, I follow you guys. You in Toronto FC. He's in DC. He's in his black, and you in the Toronto FC. You know what was that feeling? I mean, how was the camaraderie between you guys? How was it between you guys?
For me, I mean, it was no different than it was when I was playing with Guyanese Canadians, and he was with GS United. So I mean, I think I've always had this high respect for Dero, and it will never die. He was the guy that inspired me, and I've always looked up to. And being able to watch him at Varsity Stadium, he must have been 19 at the time, and I remember it was against Iran. And he did like a bicycle kick, and I was like, whoa, that was just fascinating. I can't believe, a guy from Scarborough has done this for the national team, for the country. And this is when Dero, Jason Bent, and Stalteri were being introduced to the men's national team. But I used to watch him in '97 with the under 20 World Cup. Was it under 20? I think it was under 20 World Cup or under 17 World Cup. It was under 17 World Cup.
17,
yeah, and Malaysia. And I used to record these games, and this was the guy I used to always watch growing up, and I've always wanted to like reach those levels and reach those heights, and doing that with him at not just the national team, and playing some of my best football with the national team with him there, but also playing with him at TFC, and then playing against him in the MLS. And this is an MLS legend we're talking about now, who has been, for me, one of the most legends ever, with all the titles he's won and teams he's played for, and just the awareness that he's brought to a lot of people just like myself. I think he doesn't get the respect he deserves, and I think a lot of it has to do with the support he did. Like, we're seeing it now with Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David, which is great, fantastic. But I still believe a guy like Dero deserves more than that. Like, there should be, a statue of him outside of BMO Field or something, or, if we had a national team facility, then you'd see that there. But he's a guy that has really opened the door. We didn't have academies those days, and he didn't grow up in academies, man.
Yeah.
He had to go with the team in where he was from, and just be not just having the support of coaches that were your parents, the support of people who were from the same community, who struggled,
Yeah.
who it those days. I mean, it's hard to see and understand what he went through and why, because today everyone gets an academy, and they get the nice jerseys, and they're it's all nice and fancy.
Yeah.
We didn't have that growing up, so for him to do that, and he's gone through what he's gone through. He's gone to Europe and trialed and everything. And I remember he went to second division Germany, and the stuff he went through, and the stories he told me, and I heard. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that sounds scary and hard, but I want to experience that because he's done it. He's led the way. I want to be able to follow his path and his footsteps. And if it wasn't for a guy like Dero coming out of Scarborough, I don't think I would be the guy to be sitting here talking to you today about my experience.
Yeah, I think he had a lot of fight, and it's nice because I always support him because I think he had to work doubly hard.
Extremely hard, man.
Yeah,
Extremely hard. He's doing stuff nobody could ever do as a Canadian. It's impossible. I'm sorry. Like it just won't. Because if a Canadian's that good enough to do it, I mean, I'm sure he'd be in Europe, one, but two, I mean, think about he's won MVPs for the league. He's won MVPs in the finals of championships. He's won trophies for San Jose, for Houston, I think those two teams, or was it? And then DC United. I mean, he goes there and tears it up. Even at TFC, he was creating records for TFC.
Yeah.
He set the records already for TFC. He set records for the national team top scorer. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, this guy, he's done so many things to prove that.
So just like you, what's in your plans now?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. The timing of all this has been such an eye opener, and I've been doing this my whole life, and I'm finally settling down and really enjoying the dust settling and focusing more on family. I've never had the chance to like spend time with family, whether it's my mom, my dad, my siblings, but also my kids, and
how many kids?
I have 4 kids. I have 2 in Germany, and I have 2 here in Ottawa, and then just watching them grow, because I've missed out on obviously my 2 kids in Germany and just traveling and not being around. But now I'm home and seeing that there's more to life than.
What you have in Germany? Boy, girl, 2 boys? Or?
I have a 15-year-old girl, and then I have a 13-year-old boy.
In Germany.
In Germany, and then I have a 2.5-year-old girl here in Ottawa, and a 6-month-old boy.
Oh yeah. No. That's a no-brainer. No. Okay. If I knew that, I wouldn't even ask that question. I've been there.
Right now I'm really enjoying the family life, but I'm also doing stuff with TSN, which is fun. Doing the soccer analyst stuff. It's pretty good to.
Yeah, that's a good blend with your family. That's a good blend, because that's a young.
The family thing. I mean, it's really hit me hard during this pandemic, and I mean, the soccer thing for me. I've always from the time I wanted to be a professional soccer player at the age of 13, nothing mattered to me but soccer. I was literally in snow running, doing the weights. Summer holidays, I'm training 3 times a day. I played with 3 different clubs, and I'm training my brother at the team. I had no friends, like nothing.
Funny how times change, ladies and gentlemen.
It's crazy.
You couldn't talk about that now. You couldn't even think about that now.
No, I wouldn't even let my son leave here at the age of 12. So
yeah, this is what I'm saying. So yeah, well, Julian, I want to thank you for giving me the time and the opportunity to get your information. I think you guys' information needs to be out there, and I'm glad that you were willing to be open. You don't need to be controversial, but we need, you know, that commonality. We seen it the same way. So why not say it when we had
Yeah.
time to say it, you know?
Yeah.
And I just wanted that information from you. Hopefully young people could learn from your travels. I know a lot of people stuck in certain places since the COVID, trying to go for professional careers and stuff. And you take care of your family because that's a young family, guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happens once. I gotta enjoy it now, and this is the reward I could definitely appreciate, to have the time with the family and watch the kids grow. I mean, there's nothing that's more special than that. And before they leave home at 18, then they forget about you, right? So
Yeah. Yep. Yep. You'll learn that too.
exactly.
You might leave him 12 like Jonathan. Who knows? So, you take care and thanks again for the time.
All right, Alvin, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
All right.